Okay, we'll begin the Planning Committee meeting of Akron City Council. It's after 1 o'clock. First things first, I'd like to, if there's any questions or comments, reference the meeting minutes. Short of that, there's a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. The ayes have it. We have no public hearings today. I'm going to request that we take time on the regular agenda, and then we can move into the new list. The first item, approving the sale of city-owned property located at 1024 Dealey Avenue to Michael A. and Julia A. White, determining the said property is not needed for public use.
Thank you, Chairman. Committee members, this would be a lot sale to the adjoining property owner. They wish to keep it for just green space. We would ask for consent agenda.
Consent agenda. Questions or comments? No questions or comments. Is there a recommendation for consent?
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Two.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I believe it was around $2,500. I believe it was around $2,500.
Two, authorizing the Director of Planning and Urban Development or his designee to enter into a contract or contracts with Kaboom, Inc., the United Way of Summit County, Keurig Dr. Pepper, the Knight Foundation, and the Ohio Erie Canal Corridor Coalition for the creation of a playground located at Park East.
Thank you,
Mr.
Mr.
Ashley?
Chairman. This project represents the fifth collaboration between the City of Akron and Kaboom in recent years. Previously, we've done Stoner Hawkins Park, Patterson Park, Sudeth Park, and Prentice Park. The city's obligation will come out of the 2019 Akron Parks Challenge grant that was awarded to Park East. Total project cost is $315,000, so we will be leveraging over $200,000 in outside funding for this project.
Very good. Questions or comments? Okay, very good. Hearing none, is there a, what is the time frame on this? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Keith. Mr. Ashley, I do have a question. What is the time frame on this in terms of legislation? When do you need it passed?
Well, I believe the law department, we're still finalizing the agreement with Kaboom. Once that's done, we would proceed with it. So I believe consent agenda is fine.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Ms. Sims?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to have my name added to the legislation. The second question was, do we always use obligation bonds? Or did you say park challenge?
Yeah, this is coming out of the Akron Parks Challenge, which we've identified with general obligation bonds.
So Park East was one of the parks that received the
This
funds
is one
from
of
the Parks
okay.
Challenge.
So we just
from this
part of-
year.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Further questions or comments? Very good. Hearing none, is there a recommendation for consent?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it. Three, authorizing the mayor or his designee to file applications and to enter into agreements for funding of certain capital improvements under the Ohio Public Works Commission's Local Transportation Improvement Program and the State Capital Improvements Program, committing city funds for the local share of these improvements. Mr. Ashley.
Yes, the City of Akron has utilized this annual funding source since 1989 for a variety of projects, including roadway improvements, water and sewer facilities, as well as the Bridgestone and Goodyear redevelopment projects. The 7 projects listed here are included in the 2019 capital budget. We're requesting funding of approximately $8.8 million, local share of $1.5 million, and other federal and state funds of $7.4 million. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Very good, thank you. Questions or comments? Yes, Mr. Swirsky and then Ms. Movian.
Just the Mall Avenue, you're keeping the brick, right?
Yes, sir.
but you're going to fix some of those holes and dips. Is that
Yeah.
correct?
Yes, the
That's great
project,
news.
this year,
That's great.
it's being, it's in the capital budget for design this year.
That's great news. Thank you.
Ms. Mobian?
Are any of these, this is all part of the 27% or the new dollars? Or is all part of the normal capital improvement?
The money that we're showing here as local is in the 2019 capital budget. A lot of it's just design at this point. Once we receive the grant funding, then we'd proceed with, preparing the construction documents. A large amount then of the local dollars would be showing up in
But none of
2020.
this is from the new dollars? Or issue 4?
Issue 4? No, that's a separate source for the, strictly for resurfacing.
Okay. Thank you.
Further questions? Ms. Sims?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So when we're applying for these resources, like, it has safety, where is that, the $2.1 million?
Those are federal funds through ODOT for their safety program.
So it's specifically aimed at infrastructure?
Yeah, I believe, Jim could correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe those safety funds are earmarked for the Canton Road, Market Street intersection project. But so when we apply, each project has a variety of different funds depending on what it's eligible for.
I think I hear you. Let me make sure I'm hearing you. So when we apply for this particular project, was there a RFP that specifically dealt with safety?
Yeah, in order to be eligible for safety funds, a project has to show up at a certain ranking on a statewide list that looks at the number of crashes, the frequency of crashes, and the severity of crashes. So that location was high enough, it is eligible for safety funds, and then ODOT would award those, and then we would leverage that funding with the OPWC funding if we receive it.
Thank you. I guess my inquiry is if there's resources out there to deal with safety, perhaps there was something we can look at for issues of gun violence. This is $2.1 million, and we still can't seem to find the resources to kind of support the work that we want to do around gun violence. So that was really part of my inquiry. But if it's specifically to infrastructure, I guess we wouldn't apply.
Yeah, they're federal transportation funds.
Okay,
so.
thank you.
I got a question then, Mr. Mobian. Recently, the state had passed the gas tax, I believe, or increased it, that dollar amount. That's not reflective in here.
No.
However, would it go here next year, assuming that, well, they're going to collect it, it's already done, from what I understand, correct?
I think it would.
It would go here?
But if I recall, 55% of it goes to the state of Ohio and 45% goes to local government. So I would imagine that some of that 55% would work its way into the Ohio Public Works Commission. A lot would go to just ODOT in general for its state route projects.
Correct, okay. But we would see some of that reflective in here.
Right.
Okay, very good. Ms. Mobian?
Now, you have safety in all caps. Is that an acronym for something?
I don't know. That one is just, technically it's HSP, Highway Safety Program, so it's just listed as safety for short.
Oh, okay.
So that one we actually didn't put an acronym for
No,
once.
Well, it's spelled differently than what safety would be spelled. I didn't know if it was a mistake or if it was an acronym for something. So these are federal thoroughfares. Are these?
The OPWC funds are state funds, but some of the funding categories you see in the budget for these projects are federal. So it's a combination of state, federal, and local.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Neal and then Mr. Swirsky.
If I'm looking at the right one, this has the Mall Avenue improvement on it.
Yes, sir.
That segment, is that just from the circle up to the park?
I think it's what, Hawkins to Schneider Park?
Yes.
So
So
just
yeah, be
past
from the
St.
circled,
Just past St. Sebastian's to the park?
right to the far side of Schneider Park, so
far
Schneider Park Drive, which is on the east side of the park.
Okay. Do we have it, any idea on when the next phase would come to finish that out?
I know the heading over to White Pond would be when the development at Perkins Middle School would be underway. That's when we'd be looking at phasing that. And to the east of this, nothing's been assigned yet as when that would be done. This is just the first phase. It's like the middle section.
Okay. And it says brick pavement, we are talking about, I think you assured me before, we're talking about putting the brick back, correct?
Yeah, it would be to pull up and then relay the brick to make it smooth.
Okay, okay, thank you.
Mr. Swirsky?
Do you have a rough estimate how much of the funds are local versus state and federal?
For the entire...
Overall, right.
Well, yeah, well, on this, like I said, we have 1.5 million in local funds for these 7 projects, 7.4 million in state and federal funds, and then 8.8 for OPWC.
What was that last sentence?
For the OPWC, it's
Yeah.
8.8 million we're applying for.
Okay.
So
Thank
it's a
you.
very low
Did
amount.
you say it earlier and I missed it? Sorry.
Very good. Further questions or comments? Ms. Sims?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just out of curiosity, you know where you have the SCIP slash LTIP funds, and then you have sometimes SCIP stands alone. Why is that?
Yes. STIP, that's or skip SCIP, that's for water and sewer projects only. Well, and it can be transportation. So that's why Mo Avenue could fall under the LTIP and the skip, whereas a shoreline pump station is sewer, so that can only be eligible for skip funding.
Thank you.
So where we can do both, we list both, so whichever it qualifies for, ranked-wise, we'll try to receive those funds.
Thank you.
Very good. Further questions or comments? Hearing none, consent agenda okay?
Yes, sir.
Very good.
Motion for consent.
For a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. The ayes have it. Thank you. That concludes the Planning Committee meeting of Akron City Council.